And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, ladies and gentlemen of all ages, children of all ages, to Coffee Talk. That's right, it is time for Coffee Talk, where we will be having a discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some snippets from the news, reading through, having a little discussion, so on and so forth. You get the idea. And you can find me in the live portion on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University, broadcasting simultaneously at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. There's Dusty playing with a little bell with a ball, kind of. There you go. Keep her busy for a minute as she joins us. I've got Miss Granny Smith in here too, but they don't get along that well. And of course, I do try to read through as many of the comments as is plausible. So I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in here thus far. I see Helter here today. Dragon is here. Donna Bieber, who reminds us, thumbs up, like, and share. Yes, please do if you don't mind. I'll take all the help I can get. Brian is here. Places You Can't Go is here. New York Patriot is here. I assume that's what the NY is for, New York. As we get ready to jump into what is going on in the world today. And I just wanted to emphasize really quickly on something that we talked about yesterday in an article from the Daily Caller. I see Raccoon is here as well. Glad you could make it. Appreciate everybody who's able to chime in. This is a Daily Caller article. We read this one yesterday, and it's Jamal Bowman, Fire Marshal Bowman, launches his Hip Hop Power and Justice Task Force. And the official title, of course, is the Congressional Hip Hop Power and Justice Task Force. And why are we doing this? I'll recap really quickly. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. There's the official title quoted. If I can get this damn thing to hold still, the pop-up ad is trying to take over. Congressional Hip Hop Power and Justice Task Force. There it is in quotations for all of you to see. And he does this because he claims, if I can find it, I'll try to find it. I don't know what's going on with this this article. Good Lord. Quote from Bowman: hip hop has always been about ending poverty in America, about fully funding our public schools. It has always been about justice reform and police reform. It's always been about affordable housing and dealing with the issue of threats of violence. And I challenge you, I brought this up yesterday. Show me the hip hop song, mainstream, from back when it first started, when I was growing up, or how it is now, that the theme of the album is funding public schools or affordable housing. Seriously. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. This guy is nuts. Fire Marshal Bowman, Jamal Bowman, the guy who pulled the fire alarm in Congress. Hip hop has always been about funding public schools, ending poverty, affordable housing, and threats of violence. I've heard hip hop music that threatens violence. D'Lo says they made it. Sure you didn't miss much? Yeah, well, I'm just recapping Jamal Bowman talking about hip hop from yesterday. Helter says he's still waiting to hear about the country's music task force. At some point, as a collective, we have to know when we're being insulted in plain sight. Well, if you had a country music task force, they would say it was racist because country music is predominantly Caucasian. Dragon says the disrespect is prominent. Malcolm X spoke about this many years ago. Yes, he did. He said not to trust Democrats. I remember that interview. And New York Patriot says, glad my comments are at least showing up here. ScrewTube is definitely shadow banning some of my comments. I'm not surprised. But this reminded me, and I pulled a couple out. This is the stuff I grew up with, right? Here's Snap the Power. Is anything in here about funding public school? Anybody? No? Affordable housing, maybe? So Jamal got that one wrong. How about this one? De La Soul, 3 feet high and rising. Is there, in their music video, they're sitting in a high school classroom, but I'm pretty sure that none of the songs are about funding public school, about being terrified of violence, about affordable housing, or anything that Jamal Warner says, or Jamal Warner, wrong Jamal Bowman. I had to just stick with Fire Marshal Bowman. Nothing in here that Fire Marshal Bowman claims hip hop has always been about. And the modern stuff that I can't be bothered to listen to because it's trash is about booties and bitches and expensive cars. I don't hear anything about equity or equality or diversity or public school funding in any modern ones either. Oh my God. Excuse me. And Gary Edwards is here. He says he got his notification. Good God, did you really? And again, that's a huge problem on ScrewTube, is people don't get their notifications. I set these up at 6:30 in the morning because I get up at 5:30. And Dupsy is here. Glad you could make it, Dupsy. How about this one? Not quite hip hop. This is more funk. Pretty sure there's nothing in here. Maybe they should have a funk task force too. Who remembers Boney M? Anybody? How about this one? This is about as far away from hip hop as you're going to get as I pull up my vinyl records. And oh, by the way, I mentioned this yesterday just in case anybody thought I was making it up. There's the Mr. T rap album. Yes, it happened. Mr. T rap album. He actually had, I think, 2 music videos connected with this album. Very likely the worst celebrity rap album ever published, ever produced. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. If you can imagine Mr. T being in character rapping, I'm Mr. T, as you can see, most definitely. It's awful. It's freaking awful. But it's Mr. T. You gotta love it. And Stefan says, damn, that beard looking good every time I see it. I wish I could grow one like you. I skipped a word. Go ahead, grow your beard out. Just remember to wash it. I've got the whole Charlton Heston and Moses thing going on. Those who will not live by the law shall die by the law. And so they shall. As we move around here, anybody ever heard this? You can look the music video up. I think he did one for Be Somebody and Treat Your Mother Right. Look up the Treat Your Mother Right music video. It's hilarious. It's hilarious because of how bad his rapping is. Anyways, shifting around to the top news story of the day. Top news story of the day is Fanny Willis. And this is from The Hill. You all know. And I've heard it pronounced Fanny and I've heard it pronounced Fanny. I don't know which one is correct. Okay. But I heard people in the news refer to her as both Fanny or Fanny. I don't know which one is right. Oh, Raccoon says it can't be worse than the Dallas Cowboys rapping video. I remember that. I do remember that. They even made fun of it on Saturday Night Live. They did a sketch mocking it back in the 80s. That was pretty awful too. But here we go. Fanny or Fanny Willis, 5 revelations that expose Fanny Willis hearing in Georgia. And there is a video clip and I'm going to show it. And I watched some of this. I've never, I can't imagine that this woman, let me pause that, or try to pause, that this woman as a district attorney, okay? She's a Fulton County district attorney, right? District attorney behaving the way she did in court today. And this clip is going to show some snippets from that. All piss and vinegar, all attitude. I mean, throwing her folder down on the desk, arguing with the prosecutor, arguing with the judge. It was really sad. It's like, wow, you're supposed to present yourself as someone professional. You're supposed to present yourself as someone being professional. It says tensions exploded Thursday during a forensic hearing to determine whether Fulton County's district attorney office should be disqualified from continuing its election interference prosecution of former President Trump and his allies due to a relationship between top prosecutors on the case, because she hired her, quote, boyfriend, who was cheating on his wife in this relationship, paying him allegedly damn near $1 million in taxpayer funding to investigate Trump, which he barely did. So there's a huge conflict of interest. Basically, there's a huge conflict of interest going on with that. And they rolled people in who testified. Everybody knew she was in a relationship with this guy. They would be kissing and hugging in public in the office, so on and so forth. So she denies it, and she says everybody's lying on her and on and on. And I'll play this clip for you real quick. It'll give you an idea of some of how she behaved in court. For those of you who can see it, some of you, maybe you'll just have to listen. Hopefully the sound will come out properly. Merv says, Big Fanny is an arrogant, rude, and abrasive, psychopathic liar. She was very rude. And I'm like, you're a district attorney. You're a district attorney, and you're mouthing off at a judge in court. You're mouthing off at a prosecutor in court. Slow your roll, honey. I mean, seriously. Here she comes, stomping into the courtroom.
You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
Mr. Durham, you're still with us on Zoom.
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. McDougald.
I do have a couple, Your Honor, but it's a little awkward from back here.
Well, it's highly offensive when someone lies on you, and it's highly offensive when they try to implicate that you slept with somebody the first day you met with them, and I take exception to it.
Has he ever visited you at the place you laid your head?
So let's be clear, because you lied in this. Let me tell you which one you lied in. Right here. I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth,
Judge.
And it is a lie. It is a lie.
And that was her telling the judge to back down, because the judge was ordering her to answer the question. Oh, that's something else there. But I mean, this is a district attorney for Fulton County who is trying to prosecute a former president and 18 other prominent figures. And by the way, I don't know if anyone else noticed this. I'll put this still picture up here. Fanny, you've got your dress on backwards, honey. The little zipper inside the hidden flap is supposed to be on your back. Did anyone else catch that? She's wearing her dress backwards. Let me catch up a couple of comments. New York Patriot said, take a load off Fanny. There you go. Classic rock. And Places You Can't Go said, back from Mr. T. Wow, just wow. Oh, you went and looked? You went and looked? It's really bad. He could not rap. I don't know where that album came from. Although, on this album, there is, what is the name of the song? Peer Pressure is on this album, sung by New Edition. and it's the only place you can find it. It's never been reproduced. It might be on YouTube somewhere, but Peer Pressure is on this album by New Edition. Anyways, Helter said she comes off as a bona fide nutcase who's unfit for the DA role. I know. Trashy, argumentative. Who mouths off at a judge on the stand and gets away with it? I would have been held in contempt. I mean, seriously. Dragon said she'll probably be forced to resign based on her performance on the stand. If she's this hostile and combative as a witness before a judge, imagine how she behaves as a DA. Yeah, I can imagine. It's embarrassing. The case ought to be thrown out at this point. It ought to be thrown out at this point. And again, I mean, and I'm taking a nod here actually from Abraham Lincoln, who, when he was an attorney, got a rip-roaring round of laughter in court, and I believe won his case, because he pointed out that his opposition had his shirt on backwards. He says, how can you trust a man who can't even put on his shirt correctly? Look it up. I'm serious. Her dress is on backwards. Lady, you didn't notice that? Or have you never worn a dress properly in the first place? How do you not know how to put your dress on? And you can't fix that? She could have gone in the bathroom in the courtroom and shuffled around and fixed her dress. She's got her dress on backwards, folks. That's my big takeaway. Aside from the fact that she's not honest, she is lying. She is a fornicator. I don't think she's married, which makes her a fornicator, because dude was married in an improper relationship. I saw more footage than what they showed here. I saw the witnesses. Yeah, she would be in the office kissing this guy, hugging him. She was, there's obviously a relationship, made no attempt to hide it. And there is a huge conflict of interest for her to hire that man to be the special investigator on the Donald Trump hearing and get paid as much as he has. And then he lied about how much money he made. He was not honest on the stand either. He kept trying to talk around it, trying to deny how much money he was actually making. But it's already kind of too late for that, because we can already see how much money was made. As we mosey right along here, it murders the entire investigation. It should be thrown out of court. It really should. And we're going to jump to Reuters. And we're going to talk about dear old, sweet old, lovable old, reliable old, honest old, cognitively functional old Uncle Joe. There's your sweet Uncle Joe right there, laying it down, because he's got something to tell you. Guess what? Biden is going to visit Ohio town a year after toxic train derailment. He's finally getting around to it. He was busy. He was really busy. He didn't have time. But, now that he's up for re-election, I guess he figures he better show his face. So U.S. President Joe Biden will travel to East Palestine, Ohio, on Friday for the first time since a fiery derailment of a Norfolk Southern train a year ago released more than 1 million gallons of hazardous materials and pollutants. Republicans and some local residents have criticized Biden for not visiting earlier. The accident forced residents to abandon their homes, and many people have since suffered from rashes, breathing problems, and other ailments. That's why he didn't go. He didn't want to get sick. What you will see, and this is a quote, is a president that goes out there, whether it's a red state, blue state, rural America, urban America, to hear, to make sure he is a president for all, especially when they are dealing with this awful, awful event that happened specifically in his community, said White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre. Keep in mind, it is her job to kiss his ass and to polish his turds. So that's why she tries to make it sound like he's a knight on his way to fight the dragon and save the kingdom here. That's not what's going on. He's showing up a year after the fact because he's been embarrassed about the fact that he never went down there. He was too busy on vacation at the time to show up. Yeah, he could have long since knocked this out and got it over with, shown his face. Honestly, I mean, it's kind of silly to expect a politician to show up everywhere there's a disaster. Anyways, it's really not necessary as long as the job's getting done, in my opinion. But okay, he said he was going to go. He should have gone then. Not a year later because the election's rolling around. Seriously. Back to the article. When asked if Biden would drink the water in the community, she told reporters on Thursday, quote, "The president has no concerns with drinking water in East Palestine." Translation, no. And I always hate that. Obama did that. Obama did that, bragging that, and it was the Flint, Michigan water. He did that with his glass of water that I'm sure they specially arranged for him, that it was not actually tap water, that he barely touched his lip to and pretended to sip. Bullshit. I hate when they do that kind of stuff. I seriously hate it. Let me catch up a couple of the comments here as I roll around. New York Patriot said she had a lawyer in her team with RICO experience, but she took on a guy who was an injury attorney. Yeah. Nepotism. Boogers is here. Glad you could make it. Raccoon said, did those residents ever get any money for the displacement and medical bills? Probably not, but people in other countries get money. I'm not sure if they got any kind of compensation. And if they did, it's probably coming from the railroad. Helter says it's far too late for Biden to visit East Palestine. Doing so would be an insult to the locals. Oh, they'll scurry together a handful of people to stand there and cheer and wave a flag for him. They'll scratch somebody up to make it look good in the news. And Merv says it was limo water. Was it? Limo water. But I love how she sugarcoats this. You will see a president that goes out there, whether it's a red state, blue state, rural America, urban America, to make sure he is a president for all. If that was true, you wouldn't need to sugarcoat it like that, honey. You wouldn't need to glaze it with honey. You wouldn't need to do all that because people would know it. It would be presented through his actions. They would see it. Even if it was an act, it would have looked better than this. Seriously. How stupid do you think everybody is? And I hesitate to ask that question because I already know the answer. And you already know what I'm going to say. Most people are not that smart. And people like this take advantage of that fact. They do. They abuse that. Dragon says the only reason Biden's visiting is for propaganda. Yeah, because the election's rolling around and he wants to look like he's not so much as of an indifferent prick as he really is. Because he really doesn't care. He really doesn't care. And I hate this illusion that's been built up around him about how he's really great at making people feel like he sympathizes, like he's listening, like he cares. When every time anything comes up, he turns it into a story about himself to act like he's connected somehow. And it's so fake. It's so fake. It's insulting. And New York Patriot again says illegal immigrants in New York get more compensation than the people in Ohio. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot recently. They get a great deal of compensation. They get really very well taken care of. And it's unfortunate that citizens in this country don't get taken care of that well. Not that they should be anyways, because at no point should we be relying on government to take care of us at all. It makes me think of, was it the San Francisco earthquake? I'm trying to think. Back in the late 1800s, was it San Francisco? The entire city was leveled. Not a penny from the federal government, and they didn't expect it. It was, okay, everybody, we're going to come together. We're going to clean this up and do what we can to rebuild. And if you're not going to help, mosey on down the road. Get the hell out of here because we don't need you. Federal government didn't help, not at all. They didn't send troops. They didn't send money, nothing. And we got to a point in the United States a few decades ago with the onset of welfare programs and stuff like this. Really, it kind of started with the New Deal, where people have come now to expect the federal government to fix everything, to pay for everything, to take care of everything. Big Daddy government's going to coddle you now. And unfortunately, the only way that works is with shit tons of tax dollars, which have crushed us. We're being crushed with taxes and fees and regulations. That's what it boils down to. It's a damn shame. And do you really want that handout from the government? Because they'll hold it over your head sooner or later. They really will. It's scary. But that's what everybody wants. Oh, where's my check? Where's my money? It's why I said, I have student loan debt. I'm not going to pay it. I'm not going to pay it because they're not being honest with me about how much I owe. That's why I wouldn't pay it. I've talked about it before. It should be like $2,000. They want $9.5. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. You put it back where it's supposed to be and I'll pay it. I'll pay on it. I'll do whatever I got to do to get rid of the debt, but not if it's dishonest. And there's this whole student debt thing where they say, oh, we're trying to pay off student. Don't pay my student debt off with somebody else's taxes. That's my problem. Don't do that. I don't want your money like that. Everybody wants a freaking handout. Somebody's got to pay for it. And is it really fair to expect taxpayers to pay for whatever the hell for you, for anybody? There's too much of that going on. More stupid news. And this is from the Associated Press. Protesters pour red powder on the U.S. Constitution. On the enclosure, rather, prompting the evacuation of the National Archives. Way to go. So, National Archives building and galleries were evacuated Wednesday afternoon after two protesters dumped red powder on the protective case around the U.S. Constitution. The incident occurred at 2:30 p.m., according to the National Archive. There was no damage to the Constitution itself. Yeah, it's in bomb-proof glass. How did they get that close? You see how it is. They've got it inside this gigantic enclosure with like 8 inches of bulletproof glass and 2 armed guards. How did they do that? It makes me think this kind of stuff is staged. A video posted on X social media platform shows 2 men covered in reddish pink powder standing in front of the equally splattered horizontal glass case that houses the Constitution. We are determined to foment a rebellion, one man says. We all deserve clean air, water, food, and a livable climate. Police then led the pair away. See, this ties in with what I was just talking about. They want clean air and water. They want food and a livable climate. Who's going to pay for it? You want free food too? Everybody wants something. Nobody wants to contribute. Your idea of contributing is to go in a public building and make a damn mess. That's your idea of contributing to all of this. Instead of, you can't change the world. Never try to change the world. You can only change yourself and live by example. And maybe others will see you and see, oh, this guy is happy and clean and healthy. And, maybe I could be more like that. Maybe I should do this or that. This is the example you want to set. The National Archives Rotunda is a sanctuary for our nation's founding documents. They are here for all Americans to view and understand the principles of our nation. Archivist of the United States, Colleen Shogun, said in a statement, "We take such a vandalism very seriously, and we will insist that the perpetrators be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And here's the video clip. Oh my God, they're wearing Birkenstocks. Of course they are. Makes me sick. Let me see if there's audio on this. I'll play this little bit for you here. See, the 2 guards are right there. They're not even moving. 3 guards.
We are determined to foment the rebellion. We will not be held to laws in which we have no voice or representation. This country is founded on the conditions that all men are created equally and
You can hear this.
inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're calling for all people to have all these rights, not just wealthy white men. We all deserve clean air, water, food, and a livable climate.
Let me tell you something. If that happened in the 1950s, those cops would have beat them into a bloody pulp. That would have been liquid in that powder. Idiots. Oh my God. And Stefan wants to know why so much money. In regards to what, Stefan? Dragon says we can expect to see a lot more of this in coming years. It's a shame that they insist on these polarizing stunts that seem to make them more enemies than anything. They look like idiots. And like I said, why, you can't change the world. Everybody wants to change the damn world. Public school lied to you, okay? You will not change the world. You can only change yourself. Be the best you can be. Live by example. Not by words, but by deeds, as the Bible said. Helter says these same people would decry iconoclasm for the ISIS, GWOT, or any other war going on in the world. And New York Patriot said vandalism isn't a solution to climate change. Yeah, I know. I wonder what the powder was. And Gary Edwards says they want one need met, 15 minutes of fame. Well, they got it. They got it. And it should cost them some nice jail time. Hopefully, because technically, again, just like with these people that are trying to vandalize or pretending to vandalize art in Europe, they can't really hurt the art and they can't really hurt the Constitution. And how'd they get in there with that shit in the first place? People are vetted going in. That's why I wonder sometimes if that stuff is staged and then the police are just standing around. I mean, seriously. And Q1C said, these are probably paid actors by big oil. If we're being honest, I'd always open my McDonald's across from Burger King. Yeah. There you go. This is embarrassingly stupid. And like I said, again, if this was the 50s, those guards would have beat the crap out of those 2 idiots. And then he's got to throw the thing in there that not just for white men. God, they're brainwashed. These people are so brainwashed these days. And I wonder what these people are going to feel like when they get older, or hopefully at some point as they get older, they will actually mature and look back and say, God, that was stupid. Why did I do that? And then they'll see young people mimicking the behaviors they did, and they'll shake their head and go, God, they're morons. What are they doing? And Bernab is here. Glad you could make it today. As we shift gears back to sweet old, lovable old Uncle Joe. Fox News article. White House announces Palestinians will be protected from deportation by Biden's deferred enforced departure. Because if you haven't heard, suddenly the executive branch is concerned about immigration. And the idea of starting to forcibly deport large groups of people is starting to get kicked around. Gee, you think, but not if you're Palestinian. We're gonna give you a wink and a nod. The White House announced it will be protecting Palestinian nationals from deportation for at least 18 months. President Biden released a memorandum on Wednesday explaining his decisions to authorize deferred enforcement departure privileges for Palestinian nationals. following the horrific October 7th terrorist attack by Hamas against Israel and Israel's ensuing military response. Humanitarian conditions in the Palestine territories and primarily Gaza have significantly deteriorated. The president wrote in a memorandum. He didn't write that. He can't even say that. Biden did not write that. It was written for him and he rubber stamped it. While I remain focused on improving the humanitarian situation, many civilians remain in danger. Therefore, I am directing the deferral of removal of certain Palestinians who are present in the United States. Biden added. Again, he didn't write this. There's no way. Exceptions to the DED include Palestinians who do not continually reside in the U.S., quote, or comma, illegal aliens, or maybe it should be in brackets. Following the memorandum, individuals subject to extradition, those whose presence is a danger to public safety or foreign affairs, and those linked to terrorist activity. So, read between the lines here. I'm going to read that line again. Following the memorandum, individuals subject to extradition, those whose presence is a danger to public safety or foreign affairs, and those linked to terrorist activity. You're basically admitting people like that from Palestine are already in the country, and you're not doing anything about it currently. Anyone else catch that? Those approved for DED will also be allowed to apply for non-citizen employment authorization in the U.S. through the Department of Homeland Security. They may get work permits, but there ain't any jobs for them. Biden wrote, I further direct the Secretary of Homeland Security to take appropriate measures to authorize employment for non-citizens whose removal has been deferred, as provided by this memorandum for the duration of such deferral, and to consider suspending regulatory requirements with respect to F1 non-immigrant students, who are Palestinians, as the Secretary of Homeland Security determines to be appropriate. Again, there's no way he wrote that. He probably doesn't even know about it. He probably just signed his name and stamped it. And they say, here, Mr. President, sign this for us, and we'll give you an ice cream. I bet you that's what happened. Dragon says, I would hope so. Where would they be deported to? A war zone, starvation, death? Absolutely insane. We even have to think about this. And Urban says, the more Palestinians end up in the U.S., the more local people will support Israel. The Islamist culture pervades throughout the pro-Palestine population. Harsh, but true. So there we go. But the takeaway that I get from that is that it implies that there could be hostiles already here from Palestine. And they would not be eligible for the deferment. You know there are. You know there are. You know that they're here already, right? I'm pretty sure. As we bounce around in New York. All over the globe. Globe-trotting, that's what we're doing. Back in the day, globe-trotting meant jet setting, but I can't afford to do that. New York Post. New York's $6 billion consumer home care Medicaid program in Governor Hochul's crosshairs after years of fraud and abuse. Another government program in New York that has had years of fraud and abuse? I can't imagine. A burgeoning $6 billion Medicaid program allowing New Yorkers to get paid to take care of elderly adults. I think every state has that program, which critics say has been vulnerable to fraud and abuse for years, is in Governor Kathy Hochul's crosshairs. Translation, she's going to try to cut funding. Hochul, as part of this year's budget negotiations, there it is proposing making changes to the program, such as setting limits on the number of hours those employed can work. The Consumer Direct Personal Assistance Program, which has exploded in popularity over recent years, has been criticized over lax eligibility requirements, lack of oversight, and abuse. The governor's amendment to this year's proposed $233 billion state budget submitted Thursday would give the Department of Health expanded oversight and regulatory powers over the CDPAP. The DOH would have broad regulatory authority to rein in fiscal middlemen trying to game the system by setting a limit on the number of financial intermediaries that can operate in the state. As part of the program, businesses and nonprofits can profit by essentially working as a payroll agent between Medicaid and the CDPAP caregivers. All right. And it goes on to say here, in 2020, the FBI busted one such Brooklyn-based firm for a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme in which the group manipulated the hours of CDPAP care workers in order to pocket state and federal Medicaid funds. That sort of thing goes on all the time because there isn't very much oversight, or the people who are in charge of the oversight are bribed. Okay? And what they are proposing to do is to slash the $6 billion budget so that they can use it for other programs, most likely illegal immigrants at this point, because they're cutting budgets all over the place. But their solution to cutting this budget is more bureaucratic oversight, which means hiring people to look over other people's shoulders, which is going to eat up their budget anyways. I mean, I'm not trying to make an excuse for people to get away with Medicaid or Medicare fraud, because that shouldn't happen. But it's a broken program. It probably needs to be rebuilt from scratch. You can't just hire other agencies to watch each other. That never works. That's why you have no proper oversight in the FBI or the ATF or the IRS or any other big government operation. There's nobody really watching them. It's broken from the beginning. And whenever you incorporate anyone to watch them, it's part of the same system. And if it's part of the same system, you can't trust it. Because they're not going to be honest, because they're probably corrupt too. But, you know, they've got to scratch up money for those immigrant gift cards somewhere. Oh my God. It says there are currently 250,000 New Yorkers enrolled in the CDPAP across the state. The latest Medicaid enrollment report data show it's up more than 78% from 140,000 in 2015. And most of this is probably honest. It's probably somebody who's got an elderly parent or grandparent that they take care of, that they get money for, because that's usually what this is. You know, we pay you to watch your own grandparents or something like that, so that the state doesn't have to deal with it, because it would be more expensive then. Essentially outsourcing within the individual family unit or through a smaller agency. But this is what they're going to do. We're going to investigate that. And if there is any fraud, it does need to be cracked down on. But if they busted somebody last year for defrauding millions from this program by lying about hours, or it says 2020, excuse me, not last year, then they already do have enough oversight to catch them up. So I don't know what they're trying to accomplish there. They'll probably end up spending more than they're trying to save. Urban says best argument for voting Republican, at least during the switch from Democrat, the fraud has to start from square one again. Yeah, there you go. They have to get their feet wet all over again as we mosey along. And since you brought up Republicans, we may as well talk about the main one. Big Daddy Republican, Associated Press article. Trump wants to fire thousands of government workers. Liberals are preparing to fight back if he wins. If he wins. So here we go. Former President Donald Trump has plans to radically reshape the federal government if he returns to the White House, from promising to deport millions of immigrants in the U.S. illegally to abolishing government agencies and firing tens of thousands of workers and replacing them with loyalists. Liberal organizations in Washington are backing President Joe Biden and say they expect Trump to lose, but they're quietly trying to install roadblocks just in case. A collection of activists, advocates, and legal experts, troublemakers, are promoting new federal rules to limit new federal rules to limit presidential power while urging Biden's White House to do more to protect his accomplishments. He accomplished something? I got lost right there. And limit Trump in a possible second term. All of that is happening with far less fanfare than plans by Trump supporters to create a conservative government in waiting via an effort known as Project 2025. You know what, though? Every president, every administration that comes in, that's what they do. Every president that comes in looks at all of these bureaucrats that are in these high office positions and says, you know what? A lot of these guys are going to try to sabotage me. I better get rid of as many of them as I can. Every president has done that. So why would it be a surprise? You know, the article acts like it's a huge surprise that Trump would plan to do something like that. All you guys have been working against me for the last 4 years. You're fired. Makes sense, doesn't it? Would you want to captain a ship full of people you know were responsible for mutiny on other boats? I don't think so. I don't think so. And then they want to try to limit presidential power. They've broke their necks giving the president too much power so Biden can walk all over everybody. Now all of a sudden they want to limit power because they're afraid when he gets into office, if Trump gets in office, if he gets elected again, they're all going to get fired and very likely won't be able to work in those fields again because no one will trust him. I wouldn't trust him. It says, my impression is, and this is a quote from somebody, my impression is the Biden administration is taking very seriously that potential threat and is trying to do things now, said Michael Linden, a former executive associate director of the White House Office of Management and Budget under Biden. But he added, nobody should be under any illusion there's anything that this president can do in advance to prevent the next president from doing things that are very damaging and potentially catastrophically. Really? Potentially damaging or catastrophic? You mean like the current administration? Boy, these guys will just kiss ass. It's incredible how much ass kissing goes on here. Urban says when a company is bought out by another company, the first thing that happens is a mass layoff of all the old managers of the company being taken over, mergers and acquisitions. But yeah, and that's what they do. You do see that in a lot of companies. Usually upper management will get rolled out because they're worried about the possibility of sabotage, fraud, anything like that. That's just a good business tactic. If these people would just do their jobs instead of being so brown-nosingly political, then they probably wouldn't be fired. All I do is I do my job. I don't care Republican. I don't care Democrat. I just want to do my job. It wouldn't be an issue. But that's not how it works, unfortunately. And a lot of these people, you can't trust them. Even the people you think are loyal. Look at Mike Pence. Look at how he became such a backstabbing bastard after Trump lost the last election. That's how it goes. Unfortunately, that is how it goes. Going to jump to the UK really quickly here. Telegraph, talking about a refugee in particular, but it raises a question. It says, refugee who wore paraglider image at protest to have her asylum status reviewed. There she is. Article reads, the refugee who wore a paraglider image at a pro-Palestinian protest is to have her immigration status reviewed, according to the Telegraph. Hiba Actually, it's Heba Al-Hiek, 29 years old, was one of 3 women convicted this week under the Terrorism Act after they displayed images following the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel, which killed 1,200 people and saw Hamas fighters cross the border using paragliders. The 3, including Nomutu Olinkia, Taiwo, and Pauline Akunda, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, were handed conditional discharges for carrying or displaying an article to arouse reasonable suspicion that they were supporters of Hamas. Al-Hiek was granted refugee status in the UK after claiming that her life would be in danger if she returned to Gaza because of her family's criticism of Hamas, her lawyer told the court. It is understood that the Home Office is now looking into the issue arising from her conviction, with a spokesman saying that supporting a terrorist group would not be tolerated. The government will always prioritize the safety and security of the UK. The offices associated with prosecution make it clear that supporting banned terrorist groups will not be tolerated, said the Home Office spokesman. Now, this is what's interesting about this. 2 big takeaways from this article and from this point. The woman is at a pro-Palestinian protest in the United Kingdom wearing an image of Hamas terrorist paragliders. I don't know what that means, if it's printed on her shirt or she's got a sign pinned to her jacket or whatever, because they don't show a picture of it. Okay, I'm assuming based on the description. Claims in court she can't be deported because Hamas will kill her because of her family's, or her life would be in mortal danger because her family is anti-Hamas, which is why she sought asylum in the UK. But then you're going to protest in the UK pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine. So are you pro-Hamas or not, sweetheart? Because you said in court that you're not and that you can't be deported. And then the Home Office is going to waste time on inquiries and investigations. And it's pretty damn obvious through her actions where her loyalties lie. Don't sit in the UK asking for asylum and do something that's contradictory to that. She should be deported right away. Secondly, this is Pauline and Noamitu. And again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing these names right. I'm not trying to butcher them. Look at these 2 women. Do they look Palestinian to you? Do they look Muslim to you? What do you think would happen if they got off the plane in the Middle East looking like that? Would this be acceptable in the countries they're protesting for? With the people they're protesting for? Hamas would hang both of them immediately. They wouldn't make it. They'd be executed at the airport. Hypocrites. Absolute hypocrites. Helter says saying it's being reviewed is nothing when they won't do anything about it. Yeah. And Urban says, so she is a fake refugee supporting a terrorist group that she says was the reason her family left Gaza to begin with. Make it make sense. You can't. But that's what she claims, and they'll be forced to investigate that because of the way the laws are. And waste time. Waste time, waste money. What does she do in the UK? Is she working? Is she collecting a welfare check and going to school for free? What does she do in the UK? Who are these other 2 women? The women, their hair obviously dyed. One's got a big burgundy afro. The other one's got a green afro. Would that be tolerated in the Middle East? Absolutely not. And Dupsy says it looks like they're wearing costumes or wigs. Yeah, well, I don't know. This, the burgundy might be a wig. But the green hair is obviously green because you can see the black underneath it because it's grown out And Urban says, as I said previously, the more fake refugees from Gaza, the more locals will rise up to what's exactly happening in Israel. Imagine having 9 million of those folks living next door. No kidding. Well, that's what's going on in the UK, ladies and gentlemen. Fake refugees. That makes no sense. That's a complete oxymoron. I had to flee from the Middle East because myself and my family feared for our lives from Hamas because we don't support them. But I'm at a pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protest wearing something that depicts Hamas terrorist soldiers. But please don't deport me because they'll take my life. You have no business being in the United Kingdom. None. And they should be deported immediately. Everyone who was arrested at that protest. You like it so much there, you go there. Go there. You know, as much as I talk about what a mess it is in the United States, okay, and how I don't trust the lawmakers here, and how the laws are all wonky, and about how they're trying to crush our rights and crush our free speech, I would still rather be in America than anywhere else. I have more of a chance here than anywhere else. I don't have a problem with America. I have a problem with the people running it. I'm not going to sit out in the street with a sign, woo, China. China is so much better than America. Screw you, America. You know what I mean? And Brian says people will say anything to get off the hook. Exactly. That's exactly what she's doing, is trying to get off the hook there. A big fat worm. I feel like a little tiny worm on a big fat hook. Who knows who said that? Who knows what that line is from? See if you can guess what line that's from. What film is that from? I feel like a little tiny worm on a big fat hook. I'm not going to sit there and talk about how we need to be like China, because if it was a socialist or a communist government, it would be so much better in the United States. I'm going to be a democratic socialist. You want to be a democratic socialist? Go to France. It doesn't work. Look how bad it is there. Look how bad it is in any country that has staunch socialism or communism. You want it so bad? Leave. Don't try to bring it here. Seriously. You know, I complain a lot, basically because I want people to think and to recognize the hypocrisy. Dragon nailed it. He says The Crow. That's right. And here you go. The soundtrack from The Crow. Great soundtrack. Great soundtrack. Yes, that was in The Crow. And that was when the gang leader told Brandon Lee's character, you can't have him, because he says, all I want is him. And he says, you can't have him. Then you have all come here to die. Anyways, with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. I don't have any felines in the room. There's no cats in here. They all left me. Dusty and Miss Granny Smith were in here, but they took off. But with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can join me on the live portion on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, aka Twitter, and Fistful of Radio. That's fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So we will go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, thank you, everybody who was able to join us here today. Appreciate you popping in and contributing to the conversation. Hope you got something out of it, as always. And yeah, Dupsy, it was The Crow. Dragon nailed it. I see Dupsy is asking there. says, what movie are you talking about? The Worm on the Hook. Anyways, again, hope you got something out of the conversation. And no, you will not catch me on Monday. Let me make a point here real quick. Before we sign off, I almost forgot. I have to go out of town. Again, as many of you are aware, there is a big situation with my wife's parents. Yeah, that's right. Skank. New York Patriot says the character Skank. My wife's parents, her mother, of course, had a stroke. She's in a nursing home now because she cannot recover. She's non-recoverable. And there's a lot of issues with the father. And so I'm going with her to South Carolina to help her. So I'm not going to be able to broadcast on Monday, and Tuesday is up in the air. So we will see how it goes. But again, thanks for joining me. Hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will see you again next week.